But so one of the things that I always wonder is like, you know, meaning is kind of a weird thing because most people don't think that any meaning exists, and they have kind of a Nietzsche sort of view, and I think there's atheism, there's, Nietzsche emptiness philosophy. There's a lot of different ways that people kind of bypass meaning, and even spiritual folks would be like, spiritual folks, dude. But a lot of people will, even in spiritual community, like find, whoa, this is cool. Maybe I should try and go up there, see what happens. So a lot of even spiritual folks will like find ways to bypass meaning in some sense, and to me, meaning has always just been like really clearly something that exists, and like to try to describe meaning, I don't know how to describe meaning, but if I were to describe meaning, I would say that meaning is, like a song has meaning, and if the song didn't have any meaning, you wouldn't listen to it. You could argue that, okay, I'm just listening to the song for the sound, not for the words. But the fact of the matter of the fact is that the energy of the song, right, is what is going to make you listen to the sound even. Actually, sound vibration is energy vibrating. So in this way you can see that energy, the meaning is in the energy. Same thing with a movie. A movie is much more evident that without a plot, without a meaning, you would never listen to it. And even songs on the radio, like a love song, it has meaning. So everything that we do has meaning. Why then is it so crazy to think about that this world has a meaning, Because it's actually much more crazy to think about this world not having any meaning than it is to think that it has meaning. Because if it doesn't have any meaning, you're always wondering, well, why am I here? Why is it happening? Because it doesn't make any sense. That's why, dude. That's why. If you're sitting right now and you're wondering like, but why can't I find meaning? Who am I? What is this world? Why is everything happening? It's so weird. Well, chances are, if you're thinking that right now, that's because that's bullshit. Because it's so unlikely. It's highly unlikely. And if you were to just twist your mind a little bit, and like just twist shit up a little bit to the fact, and try to introduce the idea a little bit into your brain that consciousness exists, love is real, that there's a meaning to why we're here. Okay, so to get into the esoterics, because this is where people just like cut off. I'm walking downhill now. Okay, so to get into the esoterics a little bit, to help you like understand, because just saying what is meaning turns people off because they're like, oh, but I want a reason. Okay, let me give you a reason, then get into the esoterics. So how meaning works in the esoteric sense is asking what meaning is, right? Like, what is the purpose of life? Asking what is the purpose of life, or asking why does the world exist? It's kind of like, from an objective, rational perspective, it's kind of like asking why is the color blue not red? And it's like, it just is. And this is one of the most important key things in understanding meaning, okay? That it just is. So that's the foundation of it. It just is. And that's something that you have to accept in the pursuit of meaning, is that there is no reason, because any reason you will come up with is going to be a human reasoning. So that's something that you do not want to do. When you tackle meaning, you want to go from the transcendental perspective, because The world is inherently transcendental, born from a transcendental nature. So, what I know about this is that you don't want to be going to grasp it from a human perspective. You want to be going from the transcendental perspective. And so, how you go about doing that is, like I said, understanding that meaning does exist, meaning is real, but philosophically trying to tackle meaning from human conceptual linguistic constructs, that's ridiculous, because if there's a meaning to this world, it's obviously going to be 10 times bigger than anything you can imagine. Guess what? It is. So the way to understand it is you gotta drop all the shit that you imagine about meaning, and you gotta come at it from an angle of like this. You gotta see, okay, obviously there's something going on here, right? So the way that what's called the Tao, right? The flow is a Chinese word for the flow of life, the ebb and the flow. The Tao of nature is just, it seems very chaotic. So we tend to think that because it looks chaotic, it's it is chaotic, right? That's what we think. And I had someone ask me about this yesterday, and it made me think about how to explain it properly. But it isn't chaotic, even though it seems chaotic. The truth is that the Tao does have an order. And you can see this just by sitting down and observing how things work. That actually it is filled to the brim with meaning. Like when I look down at this, stick, I see that it was created raw out of earth, and it's provided to us to give us oxygen. Like trees are literally here to give us oxygen, and stuff like that can't happen without a mastermind, which is the consciousness of God, planning this out. It just cannot happen without the weaver who weaves all the threads of life together perfectly. And it's so difficult to explain because it's not just linear or chaotic. So when people try to tackle the meaning of life, they want it to be like a human concept. They want it to be like the Christian version of God, or like atheism, or they want it to be like a pre-packaged structural, institutional, just a package that you put on your table, and you can be like, okay, here's the meaning of life. I found it, guys. I found it. That's true. That's just not gonna be how it is. It's not linear. It's not completely chaotic. It's that the flow of life is chaotic in the sense that it does what it wants, and it is what it is, and God is controlling it. So in that sense, you don't have any control over it. But it doesn't mean that it's just chaotic, because clearly everything has a purpose and an order. But it's like the river. When you look at the river, you see that it's flowing all kinds of directions, and it's doing its own thing, and there's nothing that you can do to control it, so it's not in your control. And I think that's why people tend to think that there's no purpose, because we feel purposeless, and we tend to feel like powerless. But once you surrender that power to God, you start seeing that the purpose isn't in your hands so much. It's in the greater scheme of things. And all you're here to do is just to help bring that into order. But you only bring that into order by just being. You don't bring it into order by trying to control it. It's like when you try to control it, you lose it. When you stop trying to control it, you gain it. This is how God works, and this is how meaning works as well. So like I said, even this leaf here has a purpose. Its purpose is to look nice. Its purpose is to have a symbiotic with other plants, communication. You know, the wind is here obviously to make us breathe, and I don't believe that all that is a coincidence. I don't think that could be evolution. I think, yeah, of course, and I'll make a video on this soon, of course evolution and God exist at the same time, and I'll explain you how. God is evolving. But what I'm trying to just say right now is that it's not a coincidence that all that stuff, it's not just an evolutionary, you know, byproduct or just like a randomness. You know, a helicopter isn't built, an Apache helicopter isn't built by a fucking, just like it won the lottery of just like now it just exists. Like things don't just pop out of fucking nowhere, because if it did, you know, that shit would be pretty talked about, you know what I mean? That would be a crazy world if a helicopter just summoned out of nowhere and you could just like, poof, I just want to make a tree right now. That's not how it works, you know, things grow over time, which is why manifestation, you have to have patience, because, you know, you getting money for a car or you manifesting, you know, working, growing your own food is gonna take just as long as it takes to grow a tree. Because if you're gonna grow your own food, right, you're gonna grow trees, and that's, growing a tree takes as long as it does to grow a tree. And similarly, everything else takes just as long, because everything that is in this material world took a certain amount of time to evolve and be created. Evolution is just another way of saying creation. And that's why it's just so bad to get caught up in concepts, because concepts is just like, it's just the worst enemy, really. That's the devil. If something is the devil, it's the conceptual framework that we have, that we always want to put things into boxes, and then usually we want those two boxes to fight against each other. So not only do we want like a box of like Christianity or a box of, you know, atheism, but we want them to fight against each other and like see who wins, you know.